You are listening to UpTalk with Sean Conahan. The gloves are off, and it's time to have a chat.
Hello, people, and welcome to UpTalk. Thank you for joining me for this episode. As always, the conversations and subject matter of this episode may be triggering to some of my listeners, so please take the time to do whatever you need to do to put yourself in the right frame of mind to listen and to get the most out of it. Thank you. I'm pleased to announce that I have a new member of the team, Daniela Centauros. You may recognize that last name. I'll get to that in a second. But Daniela is the founder and runs DT Social Solutions, which is a social media management company. And she has agreed to come on board of UpTalk to help me with my social media management because I suck at it for the most part. And I don't have a whole lot of time. I barely have time to get my episodes out in between my work schedule. So she has volunteered to do this for me and help me with my Facebook page and my Instagram. So a little bit about DT Social Solutions. They help small businesses elevate their social media presence to drive sales and increase brand awareness. Whether it's through a consulting session, workshop, or full-on social media management, DT will make sure you are no longer on the sidelines of the biggest platforms. Check them out, please. Check her out at dtsocialsolutions.com. Really happy to have her on board. It's going to be a huge help to the podcast. Of course, you recognize the last name because her husband is John Centauros, who was a guest on the podcast earlier this season. He is a corrections officer in Kenora, and you heard his powerful story. If you haven't heard that yet, scroll back on the episodes and listen to that one because it was awesome. So welcome aboard, Daniela. I'm, again, really pleased to have you on board. And check out her website if you think that you may be in need of or could use some social media management. All right, guys, you can find the podcast, obviously, on the Mental Health News Radio Network, the largest online network consisting of all mental health-related shows. And UpTalk is very blessed, lucky, happy to be part of that online network. We are the first Canadian show on the network, and it's awesome. Kristen, who heads up the network, is amazing and has supported UpTalk immensely. Can't thank them enough. Check them out at the mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. You can also find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And if you have a look and you find that's not the case, let me know and we will fix that up right away. But all the major ones, right? Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, we're there. So check that out, please. That would be great. This episode of the podcast is dedicated to Mark Renault. Mark was a firefighter with Edmonton Fire Rescue Service. Started working there September 1st, 2011. He worked at two of the city's busiest fire stations, was highly thought of by his peers and leaders, also struggled with depression and PTSD. And on August 26, 2018, at 29 years of age, Mark died by suicide. This episode is dedicated to him. If there is a first responder in your life that you have lost and you would like an episode dedicated to them, you can do that. Please email me at uptalkpodcast@gmail.com. And I would be very, very happy to do that. It would be my honor to celebrate the life and career of fallen first responders. I want to tell you about some events that you need to hear about. The first one comes to us from the Tema Foundation. And it is a 2-day event. The first day being an education day, which is titled Mental Wellness from the Ground Up, hosted by the Tema Foundation. And during this day, which is going to be amazing, here's who you're going to hear from. This is crazy. So Dr. Andrew Travers is going to be the moderator, and you're going to hear from Dr. Howard Conter himself. The guest speaker is Mr. Alvin Law, and if you have not heard this man speak, it is a treat. It will change your life. Other speakers include Guy LeBlanc from Corrections, Miss Emma Jevadan, the daughter of Angela Jevadan, giving a child's perspective, John Garth McDonald, paramedic from Antigonish, Mrs. Michelle McDonald, going to give the perspective from a spouse of a paramedic, Chaplain Greg Armstrong, who has been a guest on the podcast, Miss Joanne Lockhart is going to give a research update. Stephanie Miller, also past guest, is going to give a talk on first responder mental health first aid program. Mr. Paul McKenzie, who those of us in fire and emergency services in Nova Scotia will know that name. He's going to give a talk. And also, of course, our Newfoundland friends, Jamie and Vanessa McWhirter, giving the military perspective. Wicked day. You don't want to miss that. You can get tickets at eventbrite.ca for your tickets, and that's going to be on May 22nd at Mount St. Vincent University. Okay, day 2 is going to be the Tema Foundation inaugural gala on May 23rd at the Kennard Center in Halifax, again hosted by the Tema Foundation. And you can look up the Facebook pages for each of those events and how to get tickets for each. And again, if you are free or in the area and can get to this, it is going to be really special. I, unfortunately, will not be there. I will be working in northern Alberta. Will not be able to make it, however. My daughter Julia will be there helping out. Really happy about that. If you see her, say hi. Give her a hug from her dad. The other event I want to tell you about is the Kyle Curry Memorial Golf Classic for Mental Health PTSD. This was formerly the Help Our Heroes charity golf tournament, which I've been a part of the last couple of years, and is hosted or organized by Bobby McKenzie, of course, who has done this for many years now, has raised tons of money, Halifax firefighter, good friend of mine, and he's doing it again with 100% of the proceeds will go to PTSD for military and first responders, specifically the Mental Health Foundation of Nova Scotia in support of the Tema Foundation. It's Friday, June 14th. Registration is now open. Go to www.mentalhealthnovascotia.ca/Kyle Curry Memorial Golf Tournament. You'll find the information. Just search that. You'll find the information. Also, if you'd like to donate, if you can't make it, or you'd like to donate, go to www.mentalhealthnovascotia. Go to the Donate Now button, and on that page you'll see a tab marked Tema Grant. Click on that, and then follow the prompts to donate. He has awesome sponsors for this event, as always. Some of them include Q104, WestJet, Travel Hut by TPI, Project EH, Bounty Print. It's just, it's wicked. It's an awesome day. If you can get to that, please go. If you'd like to donate because you can't be there, or you'd like to donate anyway, go ahead and do that. That would be wicked. As you know, the theme this year for UpTalk is Own Your Growth. How are you doing with that? I, over the last probably month or so, have found it really difficult. I fell off the wagon then drove off a cliff, and I really allowed some negative stuff to get into my head, which we all know how that is. I'm out of it now. I'm back on track. Rebuilt the wagon, back on the wagon. Doing my meditation, doing my yoga, trying to be active, trying to eat well, eat better. And all I can say to get out of this, and what I think we need to do is, and I've said this before, we need to stop thinking and start doing. When we start to overthink things, that's when we start not doing the things that we should be doing. We've all heard the saying, easier said than done. I want to add to that, easier done than thought. Don't think about it. Just do it. you will feel much better. I can tell you that when I stay on track, I feel much better, much easier to deal with. I find it easier to engage with my family. Just better all the way around. So get on that, please. Let me know what you're doing, okay? Reach out to me on my Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter. Leave the hashtag #OwnYourGrowth. Tag UpTalk Podcast in your posts. Tell us what you are doing to own your growth. We need to hear from you. Can't just be me. Cannot do this by myself. Okay? I want to know what you are doing. And I think it would be a great help to everybody who's trying to get on track to hear what everybody else is doing and how they're doing with it. So please do that. That will be awesome. Okay, people. My next guest is an Edmonton firefighter. I met him, you're going to hear, I met him at Daniel Sundall's event last October. This conversation is really emotional. Troy is very candid and opens up about all of his struggles, in particular, his multiple suicide attempts. And we unpack that a bit, because it's important to normalize the conversation about suicide and mental health. And Troy was awesome. But you may find this conversation hard to get through. You may have to bite it off in little pieces. But it's awesome. You're going to love it. Buckle up. Meet Troy Treit.
It was a dark and stormy night. Nor'easter rolling in.
Welcome to UpTalk, Troy. It is really a pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks, Sean. I'm glad to be here.
I know we've been working on this for a little bit, and I met you actually back in October of last year at Daniel Sundall's event in Edmonton, and sort of made plans there that I knew I wanted to have you on. So it's sort of been in the works, and I'm just really happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So, yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah, no, this will be awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. So, Troy, before we get into the the meat of it, tell us a little bit about you as far as, where you grew up and what that was like and what led you to want to be a firefighter.
Yeah, Sean. So I grew up out in Edmonton actually just west of Edmonton, Stony Plain.
Okay. And
grew up out there and then out by Hubble's Lake just recently after that. But, I spent my childhood out there growing up, and I thought it was a pretty normal childhood. It seemed pretty good. I had a loving mom and a stepdad. My biological dad wasn't around when I was young. He kind of separated from my mom and let my mom do her own thing and go on her own way. So I didn't know too much of him.
Right.
But so I grew up out there and had a sister 4 years younger than me, and spent all my time out in the country there and with a few friends around school there. But it was a harder childhood for sure. Now that I look at it from this point of view,
right,
just for the sake being that, I grew up in an abusive home, so my mom and dad would fight quite a bit, and he would lay into her pretty good here and there, and so it wasn't really my safe haven. So I spent a lot of time out in the forest, out in the trees, outside, anywhere other than home.
Right.
And so I actually learned to snowboard out there and do a lot of stuff just out in nature as being my safe haven. So I wasn't really even there for my sister, my mom. I didn't know what to do to fix the situation or make it easier. And so it was tough to be around. So yeah, I spent a lot of time actually even at nighttime sleeping out in the trees and that kind of thing, because it was safer there for me than being at home hearing everything that was going on. And made it tougher at school because I didn't have a way to fit in. Like, I didn't play the sports that they all did, the team sports. And there was a lot of times I'd ask Dad if he'd teach me to play baseball or do any other kind of sports so I could just kind of join in. And he never really had time. He was always working. He was a truck driver, so he spent a ton of time on the highway.
I know what that's like. My dad was actually a truck driver all through my growing up as well, so I know what that's like.
Yeah, for sure. So they're never really around, right? They're on the highway a lot of the times and
right,
never really at home. And then, so when he was home, he was quite tired and and sore, right? So he spent a lot of time on the couch or just resting. So I never really had a relationship with him that. And so, yeah, that made school tough. So going through school, I kind of hung out with kids that I could relate to in a way that they didn't really have the same type of lifestyle. And so I never hung out with like the jocks or that kind of thing, that what people back then called the cool kids, right? So
yeah.
Yeah, and so that made it tough on me because they always say, Troy, if you would just come hang out with us, then you wouldn't get picked on so much and you wouldn't get ragged on. But those other guys were my friends, and that's who I spent all my time with. And so in doing that, a lot of names came out, right? I was a smaller kid. I was 4 feet tall and I was around the 100-pound mark in high school, right? I was extremely short. Right. And so I got picked on a lot with that kid, shorty, and all anybody ever wanted to do was fight. So constantly I just watch fights and have to go through them, right? And so my friends got beat up quite a bit, and there was no way I could protect them. I was a small guy, so they would hold me back and make me watch as my friends would get beat up constantly over and over again. And I hated the atmosphere, so I ended up skipping school quite a bit. I'd show up on exams. I'd study in my car or my truck at home, and then I'd just go write exams, and I'd stay out of school as much as possible.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much how it went right through high school and that kind of thing. And then as I got out of high school, I hung out with the same guys, and I went from job to job, which is funny because I'd had 27 jobs before I got on the fire department. And,
Yeah.
And the biggest thing was I'd get used to doing something and it wasn't challenging anymore, so I'd move on. I said, I don't really like it anymore. It's not for me. And in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be a firefighter, but in high school, from a counselor, I was told you got to be taller and you got to be stronger and you got to be bigger, right? So I never looked to it. I never looked to becoming a firefighter because at this point I was 5'9" and 120 pounds, still a skinny little guy, but I said, I can't be a fireman, so I'll look for anything else out there that I can do, something to help people, right? And so yeah, I went from job to job, and then I met my wife actually at a bar, Esmeralda's, and that was a bar here in Edmonton, and we ended up starting a date, and then I seen she was in school for banking and business and following her dreams and doing that. And so as we spent a lot of time together, I started to open up and really started to trust her. It was the first person in life I could trust other than my mom. And she was a huge inspiration to me, so she kind of helped me through life. And as time went on, she says, why don't you try to become a fireman and do what you want to do? And so I kind of hold value to that, and I chased it. So I started working out every day. I started studying the exams. I applied at Volunteer Hall, and I just did it step by step, and I worked hard for it. And so started working out, and I grew in size, started studying. I got on in a Volunteer Hall in Parkland County, and I started volunteering there for about 3 years before I applied for the Calgary Fire Department. And so then I applied for the Calgary Fire Department and went through the test, passed the test, got to the interview, and in the interview, the captain actually came out and said, you're not meant to be a firefighter. This isn't for you. This isn't what you're going to do, just based off of the way I was answering the questions and that type of thing. So this hit me with everything I had, that I was like, I worked so hard to become something, do something, and be someone, because I wasn't my whole life. Like, I looked for self-worth from my dad my whole life, just to say, hey, good job.
Right.
You did it, right? You made it. And it was never there. So I thought this was my big way of doing that. And so when Calgary deferred me and actually blacklisted me,
wow.
I was quite upset. And so I told Amy, we ended up driving from Calgary through Banff up Highway 93 to Jasper the whole way home. It was like a 12-hour drive just because I just didn't want to go back. I was upset. I didn't know what I was going to do if I wasn't doing that. And so, yeah, it hit me hard. And then I figured, like, I've worked so hard for it there, well, I'll just keep applying to other cities. And that's what I did. So I applied to Edmonton was next. And I wrote the aptitude test, just got the mark that passed on the bell curve, and I was like, oh man, there's like 3,000 people applying this year. Am I going to make it with a mark like that? And started questioning myself, and then I had to realize, got to get back to my heart and tell myself, no, you can do this. You can do this. Just keep trying. And so then I got to the physical, and I did amazing at the physical. Got to the interview, did amazing in the interview, and then ended up being number 5 on the eligibility list that year. So then I ended up getting on Edmonton as a firefighter in 2009, which, yeah, it was amazing. It was an amazing day to see that I accomplished what I want to accomplish. So
wicked.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, so you did this, you worked, you fulfilled the dream of getting hired on as a firefighter in Edmonton, and you started working there. And, you know, how did you, up to 2017, when things started to get really rough for you, how did you find it? How were you doing?
So, big thing on the fire department was like the first year or two was you're a rookie, and so you just put your head to the ground, you listen, and you do what's asked of you, and you just learn as you're going along. So I spent so much time in my book and so much time learning and responding to these calls that nothing really ever sank in. Like, the calls never sunk in.
Right.
I never came up with coping mechanisms of dealing with the trauma that was happening as I was seeing it daily, right? And going from day shifts to night shifts, and being able to kind of go through all that, getting the right sleep patterns going. I wasn't doing any of that. So as the time went on and the years went on, I started to notice as me and my wife were fighting, and I have 2 boys, 5 years old and 3 years old, that I was starting to have more anger with them. And I was starting to lash out more, and I'd be cursing, I'd be calling them names, I'd be getting angry, I'd be doing spankings. And then when things were good, I was never really there. I was numb to everything. Like, I would constantly be focused on life is crap because of what I've seen and what other firemen and other first responders and veterans have seen. You go through seeing some of the worst things, and it messes your head up in a way that you don't understand how to go back to home and see things as being good when you were in a situation of trauma like that. And so that started to weigh quite a bit on my family and myself. And then
did you realize it though? Did you realize it was actually a problem, or did you just see it as, you know, your family's giving you a hard time, or like, did you look for other reasons for it? Or did you know that this was because of the job affecting you?
No, at first I didn't know it was a job. I thought it was either what I'm going through. Maybe I'm not happy now because I've been a fireman for so long and now I'm not working towards a goal anymore.
Oh, okay. Like your regular cycle.
Yeah, like a regular cycle. Or I thought, oh, maybe Amy's just picking on me. Maybe it's just hard because the boys are young. Because at a fire hall, guys have these faces, and like I wore one at the fire department where I was a cool, laid back surfer snowboarder guy. And
yeah.
I hid it all. I hid all the pain, and I was able to walk around with a smile, and people were like, man, Troy's a happy guy, but I really wasn't. And I made that face because I didn't want anybody to know what I went through or who I was, because I'm like, man, they're going to look at me as being weak. They're going to look at me as being somebody that's not meant to be a firefighter, and they're just going to pick on me at the fire hall if that's the case, right? Just like it happened in school. So I didn't want to enter that realm, so I created my own front to be strong that way. But in doing that and then coming back home, you never really you. So I was never really engaged with my kids in any activity or any fun whatsoever. I was never engaged with conversation with my wife. I was always spaced out. Yeah. Just in a different place, right? It was a dark place, and I felt alone there. I didn't know who to talk to, how to talk, even what to do to fix it, right? And it just spiraled from there, and it got worse and worse to the point where I didn't want to be at work anymore. I didn't want to respond to calls anymore. I hated being a fireman. I didn't want to do it anymore, right? And
yeah. And then, you know, everything came to a head the first time for you in November 2017. So what can you tell me sort of leading up to that, and then what happened then?
So yeah, November 2017, I was sitting on my stairs at home, and I just started crying. And I said, Amy, I don't know what's going on. It says, everything is messed up right now. I said, I don't know how to be a dad. I don't know how to be a husband.
Yeah.
It, my mind was in such a typhoon spin in my head. I didn't know up from down at that point, and I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to escape, and I just wanted to leave it all and have it all stop. And so ended up booking off work. And I actually, few times through doing that, booking off work, I just wanted it all stop. So I wanted to take my life, right? And so I tried multiple times. I would drive off with a vacuum hose in my passenger seat, and I'd park on the side of the road, and I would just drink a Mickey of whiskey and sit there, and I would yell. I'd yell at God. I was mad at him for my childhood, mad at him for what I was going through, and I couldn't figure it all out. I carried a lot of trauma with me, and I just wasn't in a happy place. And so I wanted to put the hose on the exhaust and into the vehicle, and I never committed to it then. I would just drink the whiskey and then end up driving home and passing out. And that went on for a while of just not actually committing to it and going through it. But I ended up seeing a psychologist, and she was amazing in helping me and getting me through stuff. But we never focused on the childhood trauma. We never focused on a lot of the fire hall stuff. It was just on ways to get happy, right? Just a medical point of view kind of thing. And so it seemed to get better, and I seemed to progress and find different goals and stuff. And a big one for me was, I was like, maybe if I get back to my realm. So me and Amy decided we were going to sell our house in Spruce Grove and move to Canmore, be closer to the mountains and closer to what we love to do. We loved traveling and going to Hawaii and spending time in the mountains. So we're like, maybe if we're in the mountains, things will get a little bit better for me. I'll be able to be out there doing the outdoor stuff, snowboarding and all the sports and that kind of thing. And so I was happy then. So I committed to that. That was my goal. I had a new goal, and I had drive to get to something that I truly believed was going to fix it all. And so we did it. We sold the house, packed up, moved to a condo in Canmore, and rented there. And so then I returned back to the job.
Okay.
And now I was doing the commute back and forth from Canmore to there. And
when was that for? When did you go back? How long after booking off?
It would have been 3 months. So
okay.
Would have been
like January, February of 2018?
Yeah, it would have been around February that I went back. Cool. And so I started working, and everything was good, and I was happy, and I was like, okay, now I'm doing the commute, and we get to be in the mountains. So when I'm not at work, I get to spend time with my family in Canmore, and there's no calls, no trauma associated with that. I separated both.
Right.
And as I did that, the days and weeks started to go by, and I started to notice that it wasn't working. I was still carrying a lot of pain with me, a lot of heartache, and I actually couldn't even get out to the mountains to snowboard or go hiking, biking, do any of it. I didn't even look at the mountains. I hated looking at them. It just, a massive depression kicked in hard and a ton of anxiety, because I said, if I can't be happy here, how am I ever going to be happy? How am I going to do anything? And so I became numb to everything, and it got way worse than I ever had been. And I started lashing out at my wife, my kids, to the point where my kids were scared of me, scared that if they did something wrong, I was going to spank them or hit them. So they'd get in like a fetal position if they seen me mad coming towards them. And it hurt my heart deep down, but I carried so much anger and depression that I couldn't focus on what was happening to them, to my wife, for the names, the insults, and everything going on. And I was like, I can't fix this. I can't figure a way out of all of this. And I was hating God. I was hating everything in the world. So ended up booking off November the following year, 2018.
Yeah.
And I tried to take my life 3 times. 3 times I put a belt around the shower, and I wanted to do it, but Mara walked in, and it crushed me inside that I can't have them see me do this or me go through this. And so I said, I'll just do it somewhere else another time. And still went through the days. I would just be numb all day. I wouldn't do anything. I would just float through the days and just wait for the time when it was right to just take my own life and leave the world. And the biggest reason why I wanted to was not to hurt my family, not to hurt anybody else. It was the fact that I figured if I left, they'd find a better dad, a better husband, someone who wouldn't treat them the way I was treating them. That if I left, it would be okay. They'd move on. It'd be okay. I didn't want to do it as a selfish act of not being able to deal with what I'm going through, but the fact that they'd have better if I was gone, that there would be better out there if I was gone. And so... Sorry,
and Troy, I want to dwell on that for 1 second, because that's a really important point. It's easy. I think it's obviously easy, and I can see it. It's reasonable for people to think that suicide is a selfish act, especially if you haven't gone down that path before. But, I mean, what you're saying rings true for me. In my experience, when I was, when I had suicidal ideations more than once, more than a few times, I would be going through family members and loved ones, and I would be checking them off. Would these people be better without me here? Check. And I keep going down the list. Now, I never got to the end of my list, thank God, and then that's why I didn't do it. However, you do truly think that this is your one last selfless act to make your loved one's life better in the long run. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. You want them to be better off, and you realize staying around, you're just putting them through the pain and torture that you're going through is what it feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. And then during this second time off, you got diagnosed with PTSD. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that would have been from the same psychologist that I was going to see. And so she said we were going to work on that PTSD and stuff like that, and start doing the stuff for that. And I think it was DMR training or something.
EMDR?
Yeah, EMDR. We were going to start doing that. And so I lived in Calmore, and she was in Edmonton, so I'd have to do the commute back and forth to go see her. So it would be a few weeks before I could see her. And so in that time being, it was towards the end of, I'd say middle of November, when it went down hard and fast. And I put a belt around my neck. It was in the morning. Amy went off to work in the morning. She was going to the branch to do some work in Calmore, and both boys were in school and daycare. And I said, this is it. I can finally leave this world and have it all stop. And so I wrapped my neck and I said, this is it. I felt the air leaving my lungs, and I felt myself starting to pass out, and everything was blurry. But Amy came barreling through the door. She just felt that there was a reason she had to come home. And she freaked and she screamed and she yanked it off. And I'll never forget that day, seeing the fear in her eyes. That she couldn't help me. She tried her whole time we were married. She just wanted to find a way for me to be happy. And so she held a lot of value in that and spent a ton of time on that, seeing in her eyes the suffering and pain. It hurt me a lot. And she ended up calling a good friend of mine on Anaheim Fire Department. And he went to a program called Save a Warrior. Mm-hmm. And he had a lot of issues as well, with the department and things going on in life, and he said it changed his life. And so he spent probably a half an hour talking on the phone, and I just sat there listening, and something got through to me when he was talking, and it was the fact that he says this can all change. You can get your mind to stop, and you can find the light at the end of the tunnel, and you'll be happy. You just got to go to this program, Treit. You'll be happy. You just got to go to this program. And he kept saying that. And so after seeing the fear in Amy's eyes of pulling the belt off and going through all that, I said, I have to try for them, for everything they've been through and everything they've gone through, my wife, my kids, my family, everyone. I have to try for them. And so that's when I committed to going to this Save a Warrior program. I said, I've tried everything. I might as well at least try this before I take the end result, right? And so that was my plan. I was like, I'm going to Save a Warrior. If it doesn't work, I'm just going to hike down the coast, down the highway, and just disappear. And that was my plan. I packed my bags that way. That was what it's going to be. I didn't see the program working, so I packed the opposite way. And
Yeah. So, I mean, I know a little bit about Save a Warrior only because, a couple reasons. I have had a couple friends other than you go through it. Mark Long, who I went to high school with, police officer out here in Nova Scotia, went through Save a Warrior. He's a big Save a Warrior advocate, as he should be, and now has his cracked armor gear. And then also my link to Save a Warrior is I went to Project Trauma Support, which is a Canadian version of Save a Warrior. It's actually molded after Save a Warrior. There was a brother in Project Trauma Support, David Blair, who's a police officer, just recently retired. He was the first Canadian to go down to Save a Warrior, and after that is when they decided, when he finally got hooked up with Dr. Manuela Joannou, to develop a program like that in Canada. So I know that Save a Warrior is an extremely special program that deals with a lot of the moral injuries that we encounter. What can you tell me, A, about the program itself, and then your experience at the program?
Yeah, for sure. So it's funny you mentioned Mark Long, because I was set to go to Save a Warrior in Malibu in the end of November, and so they had those wildfires going on,
right?
And it wiped it out. It wiped it out completely. It burnt to the ground. And I said, of course. I said, I'm struggling. I need help, and I got to get there. And it burns down, and now it's not around. And then he says, well, we're gonna send you to Ohio. And I was like, man, I don't want to go to Ohio. I don't know anything about Ohio. It's a mainland. It's away from the ocean. It's away from my comfort zone.
Right.
Of the ocean, right? So I didn't want to go. So he's like, kept talking to me. I said, no, I'm not going, Matty. I don't want to do this. I'm done. I said, Malibu burnt down. It was a sign not to go at all. So he actually ended up calling a friend, which is Mark Long, up in Halifax, who then called me and got on the phone and was blunt and honest and said, Troy, are you a good dad? I said, I thought I was here and there. No. You're not, but you will be a better one, but you got to go to this program. So he is blunt and honest, and I listened to him. So I went, and he actually ended up being one of my shepherds there, which is one of the people that teach you and help you through it. So it was awesome. So I got to spend a lot of time there learning from him and stuff, and what he's doing in Canada with cracked armor. That's huge. So I went to Save a Warrior in Ohio, and that would have been started December. And it's a 5.5-day program, and I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I was like, I talked to him. I said, is this a cult? Is this, they like hypnotize you, brainwash? He's like, how can these guys go from struggling in pain to happy on the other side? Like the sound difference in their voice from pain and suffering to how they sound after, it's a complete change. And I was like, that can't be right. How is that possible that you can be happy? And so I got on the plane, I get there, and overnight in Columbus, I paced the hotel room probably for 4 or 5 hours in the middle of the night, thinking, what am I doing? What am I going to? What am I getting myself involved in? And I wanted to run. I didn't want to do it. So actually end up talking to Mark. I said, Mark, I don't want to do this. And he said, stay there, man. We'll be there to pick you up in the morning, and we're going in this program. Just trust me and go through it. So I did, and in the 5.5 days, this program, it felt like 6 months, a year even, that you're there for. The things you learn, the things you go through, and the time spent with these other guys suffering. And it was one of the most amazing things I ever witnessed. There was miracles happening and things going on. And for Jake Clark, the guy who founded the program, he was there as well. Just, it was amazing. And so I want to say a little bit about what happened to me as Save a Warrior, because it was powerful. It was powerful for me. It changed my whole life, my whole perception on everything now. And so in this 5.5 days, you go through things and you learn meditation, go through meditation, different books to read on the self-help and that kind of stuff. And then you go through more spiritual kind of things like a labyrinth and equine therapy, and then a rope course day. So as these days are going on, and there's guys opening up about childhood trauma, and they're focusing in on childhood trauma, I didn't understand it. Guys were crying and guys were opening up, and I said, this isn't normal. Like, me growing up as a kid, I was taught, be strong, be tough, you don't cry, you don't show emotion, just find a way through it and get over it. And that's what I was teaching my boys. They said, don't cry, just get over it and move on. And I was seeing this happening. I was like, this is different. I don't understand this. This is completely out of my comfort zone. But then I'd see them smile as time went on, like something was being released as they were opening up, showing vulnerability, speaking from their heart, things I never understood before. And these shepherds, the guys that would help with us, they'd hold space for these people and just be there in comfort. And I was like, this is amazing. And so on this ropes day, there's a 30-foot pole that you climb up, and there's a leap of faith. You leap for a trapeze bar on the other side. And in doing this, you create SMART goals at the bottom, goals of things that you want to stick to, things that will help you in the future as you leave Save a Warrior, as well as release any trauma you have at the bottom. Anything that's bothering you, anything that's on your mind, let it all go. Let it all go and move on, right? And so at the bottom of this pole, I did that. I spoke of my childhood, the abuse, the suicides, the addictions. Like, I had addictions to porn because it was a coping mechanism for me. It made me feel good, right? But then there was a ton of guilt and shame that came with that. And so all of this stuff I'm letting go at the bottom of the pole, and I'm shaking and I'm crying, and I've never felt like this in my life. It was exhausting letting it all out. But at the same time, it felt good that, hey, nobody's laughing at me. Nobody's saying you're weak. They're just holding space and comforting. And to learn to trust a group of guys like that. I wasn't able to do that my whole life. I didn't trust my dad. I didn't trust men. I didn't trust most people in life. If I show them who I really am, they're just going to destroy me. And I did that. I opened up at the bottom of that pole. And then as I'm climbing up the pole, you stand up on top of it and look to the horizon, and you could yell if you want, you could say whatever you want, and then you leap for the trapeze bar. It's like a leap of faith. You're letting go of everything and moving on. And so I got to the top of the pole, and I'm looking over the tree line in the horizon, and there's some helicopter like cargo nets that are built up as like climbing nets because it's a big rope course there. And first thing I thought of was my dad brought home these cargo nets to hang up in the trees and say, hey, you guys can climb on them. And at that point I realized that he tried in the best way he knew possible to raise us.
Yeah.
And he didn't know necessarily what he was doing was painful and hurtful. It came from the guilt and shame he either carried from his parents or from generation to generation. And at that point, I forgave him up there and realized he did the best he could with what he knew and what he had at the time. And that's okay. And so as I forgave him, I also talked to God up there, actually. And Because my family was really religious growing up, and I kind of followed him, but it was all over the plate. And as I was up there talking to him, I said, God, I think I understand now the pain, the struggles we go through build us for a bigger purpose, a bigger meaning, something made more. I said, it was hard, and it felt like you were never there. But he was always there, because Amy blew through the door before I took my own life. Maddie was there from Anaheim Fire to help me get to Save a Warrior. Same with Mark. So he works through people, and he was always there, even if I didn't feel it or see it. He was there, and I realized that up there, and I gave him my heart, and I said, I have faith in you now, Lord, and I want to walk with you. And I yelled that out. I yelled that out from the top of the pole to the treetops, that I had faith, and I'm walking with you now. And something powerful happened for me. I was exhausted. I was shaking up there. Lots was going on this day. And as I jumped for the trapeze bar, I saw a bright spark, bright light, and everything went black. I don't remember touching the trapeze bar. I don't remember seeing anything. And we're on a climbing harness, so I didn't fall to the ground. They slowly lowered me to the ground, but they said my body was limp. I wasn't with it. I wasn't there anymore. I was blacked out. So I literally just passed out as I jumped. And as I got to the ground, and I started to come to, it was like wiping off the fog off of a shower door after you have a hot shower, and everything started to become more clear and more vibrant. And one of the first things I said, and I still don't remember saying it, was, everything's beautiful now. And Jake, the founder of Save a Warrior, he was standing there in front of me, and he put his arms on my shoulder, and he said, Troy, we built this for you. This program, we built this for you. And as he said that, as I'm looking through his eyes, I seen a deep love and devotion. It was like I seen God's love through him. And it was so powerful for me that it changed everything from that point forward, to know that there is a lot of love and devotion out there for people, and they just got to open up and see it. And so that day changed my life for Save a Warrior. And from that point forward, it's been a whirlwind of good. There's still hard days, but when you have a foundation and you have the tools to use that they teach you, oh, life's amazing now, Sean. It's unreal.
When did you come home from Save a Warrior? When would that have been?
It would have been December 8th.
Just past December 8th.
Yeah.
And so, how was it when you got home? Because you're not at Save a Warrior anymore. Now you're back in your environment.
Yeah.
How'd you find it?
It was, as I got off the plane, my wife and kids were there. I had such a deep love and passion in me to see them, like hugging them, kissing them. It was like I didn't see them for years. And to have that connection, it was the first true connection I actually had, was hugging them in the airport. Because I didn't feel that even when they were born or marrying Amy, but I was in my heart now, not in my mind anymore. I didn't have the depression I was carrying, the anxiety I was carrying. I was living in my heart, so I got to feel true love by the connection with them. And that was amazing. And as time went on, I started to realize that I would meditate every day, because they teach you to meditate, so I'm meditating every day. I do my ACA work, so that's adult children with dysfunctional families, so I do that book work, and I go to those meetings weekly and stuff. And in doing that, I also started reading the Bible a ton and reading scripture, and I actually started writing. I write like crazy now, and something I never knew to do before.
Right.
And so I write a lot, and it inspires other guys, but it also inspires me, and it's a release for me. And so, in keeping up with these things, it makes it easier at home, because my boys saw me a different way before I left as to when I came back, and so did Amy. And so Amy didn't understand. She'd say, Troy's different now. And so she'd call Maddie, and she'd say, I don't understand, like, he's different, like, he's not reacting the same way. He's not doing the same thing. So she didn't really know me, because now I was actually starting to become me more around home. And it took time. It took time for them to get used to it and adjust and stuff and learn to trust again, right? Because I'm sure they had boundaries up from how I was before.
Yeah, for sure.
And so then, it started to grow over time. I started to become more engaged in situations with my boy, more engaged in situations with my wife, and actually truly enjoying things. And you know what, being a kid again with them, right? I didn't know how to be a kid when I was a kid, and now learning to be a kid with them as we play, build Lego, and go for hikes and snowboarding and stuff like that. And then being a husband for my wife too, right? Knowing that we get a lot of devotion and sense of peace by serving others too, right? And helping others. So in helping her or her family or my family, it's a good feeling to know to be there, right? Be there for other people too. So yeah, there's a lot of light on the other side. It's just getting to that point, right? And and then from there.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned a couple things, so I want to touch on them because, as I said to you earlier, the theme this year for UpTalk is own your growth, taking responsibility for your own growth and doing the things that you know help you. So I know you mentioned a couple things. You mentioned meditation and writing, and you're reading scripture. What are some other things that you've built into your daily or weekly routine, just specifically because you know they will help keep you on track?
Yeah, so with that, big things are, like I'll wake up, I'll do my meditation, and I'll go to sleep, I'll do my meditation. So those are my nightly things. Reading's a big one for me, reading books like the Body Score and my ACA work and the Bible. Those are all big ones to turn to. But another one is also having like a work-life balance. So having that time with my kids, being engaged in that time, and being there with them, not concentrating on what I have to do next or this and that, and doing one day at a time is huge. Just concentrating on one day at a time and moving through with that and making sure you get enough sleep, right? I make sure nightly I'm getting enough sleep now and doing that kind of thing. And I haven't returned to the fire hall yet, as I'm still on a path, and I'm still learning on what's next for me. And if returning is, then it is, or if doing something like Save a Warrior up here in Canmore, then that's the path they take. But I'm just learning and growing personally before I ever enter that kind of world. But
and how's the support for that for you? Like, do you have support from your fire service, and as far as that goes, to take that time and to be able to take that time?
Yeah, for sure. Like, they have an amazing system with that, as long as you follow up with psychologists and stuff, that they support you, and so you still get paid and you don't have to worry financially in that state.
That's awesome.
And so that's good, as you can build, right? Because returning to a world of trauma, you have to have these coping mechanisms in place, and you have to be strong. You have to start growing within and knowing who you are, and you need to do these daily work. We call it bucket work. So you got to do this bucket work daily to get to where you got to get, right? And some days become busy, and there would be days I wouldn't meditate, and Amy would say, "Hey, Troy, have you meditated today?" And I'd be like, "No, I haven't." And so it would remind me that I need to go do that, because like anything, you're going to fall right back in the same slump you were if you're not doing the things you're supposed to be doing, right? And that's healing. And big ones for me are prayer, right? Going through the day with prayer, making God first, and a lot of things in my life works for me, and reaching to a higher power, right? So
absolutely. That's all that matters. You have to find what works for you.
Exactly.
It's not the same for everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah, and then it's just to be humble, right? Like, don't try to rush everything. Like, things are going to happen when they happen. Like, you want to know God's will, don't do anything. Things are going to work out in time when they need to work out. So you just have to be happy, and you have to be okay with what you're going through now, right? And you are going to go through stressors, and you are going to go through pain in life, but it's the way you look at it too, right? Before Save a Warrior, I'd look at it as, this is going to destroy me. This is going to haunt me. There's no way coming out of this. And now I look at it as, what could I learn from this? What could I grow through in this, right? And so it's just reminding yourself of those things, and then leaning into, right? Like, we have our cohort, which is our brotherhood of Save a Warrior, that we talk to each other daily, weekly, when we're struggling, and we help pull each other through it. And that's amazing, right? It's amazing that you need that connection. You need that accountability with others to get through what you're going through. Nobody can do it alone. And knowing it's okay to open up, it's okay to show vulnerability, it's okay to show emotion, it's okay to cry.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with showing emotion, right? That's human nature.
So bring us to today, Troy. How is everything today with you and your family and everything?
Oh, it's amazing. Like I said, I'm just spending time with them. So as I'm off work right now and Amy's chasing new ventures in life, I'm getting to spend a lot of time, kind of like the daddy daycare, spending time with my boys, and then spending time with my wife, because I didn't before Save a Warrior, I didn't know who they were, and now I'm learning that, and I'm growing in that, and so I'm just spending a lot of family time together, getting that back, because I didn't have that before, and yeah, that's amazing. And spending time writing and spending time out in the mountains and actually learning to be in the now, right? Learning to embrace everything that's around you and be grateful for things every day. A big thing that me and my boys and wife do every night is say things we're grateful for every day, and
hugely important.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just moving through that. And so, yeah, every day is just it's a brighter day, right? And yeah, it's gone amazing, and it's gone a lot better. And yeah, it's just, yeah.
No, that's wicked. I can see it. I mean, you just hear it in your voice, just the sort of journey you've been through to here, and just how much more at ease you are now, and truly happy. You've already touched on some of these already. You just gave a little bit of a message, but I'm going to ask you this question: if there's somebody listening right now, Troy, who is struggling in any way at all, and they were in front of you, what would you say to them?
I'd say open up. You want life, you got to take the fear out of it, and you got to take the risk out of it, and just open up. Be vulnerable. Speak out. Let people know what's bothering you. If there's someone in your life you can trust, let them know what's bothering you. And if not, there's programs out there like Save a Warrior that you can go to get your life back and learn to live in your heart and not your mind. So I would just say, give it a chance. Don't take the other road, because I tried 5 times, and I would regret that if that's even possible at that point. But I took the other road, and I got my life back, and yeah, it's amazing. Just fight for your life is what I'm saying.
Well said. Troy, you are, I don't know how to say it, you are really inspirational to me, and I'm sure to many listeners. I think you're awesome. I think that there's much better things for you to come, as far as I really think that you have probably a place, if you want it, in this whole advocacy community. I know you have a huge support system through Save a Warrior, and here in Alberta, there's a lot of support, mental health support, just even around you, whether it be with Teresa Coulter or Daniel Sundahl, or you have amazing people here, and you're one of them, and you're one of these amazing people. Please don't stop doing what you're doing. I know there's much more to come, and I really look forward to seeing it.
Thanks, Sean. I really appreciate that. And same goes for you and what you're doing with the podcast and letting people reach out and speak from their heart, because it's touching so many others out there in the country, right? So
it's my pleasure, brother. We have much more work to do.
Yeah, it's awesome, though.
It is.
Good cause.
It is. So listen, Troy, thank you for taking the time here today. Please keep taking care of yourself and your family. I'm sure we're going to talk again soon. And like I said, I know you have this big community, but you know that if you ever need or have a question about anything, you can always reach out to me, always, without doubt. And I love you, brother, and just keep doing what you're doing, and take care.
Same goes for you, brother. Love you, man.
All right, man. Have a good day.
You too.
Now my shift is finally over. I gotta deal with what's mine.
Whew. Exhale, people. I want to thank Troy for being exceptionally candid and honest with his struggles, about his struggles. It was such an honor to talk to him. I respect the hell out of him. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I'm sure you did. There's no way that you couldn't. Exceptional message of resiliency. Thanks again, Troy. Again, this episode dedicated to Mark Renault, Edmonton firefighter, who died by suicide August 26th, 2018 at the age of 29 years old. My pleasure to dedicate this episode to him. Again, UpTalk Podcast is brought to you by the Mental Health News Radio Network. Check that out at the mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. And we are now supported by DT Social Solutions. Check out what that awesome company can do for you at dtsocialsolutions.com. Thank you to Daniela Centauros again for coming on board. Own your growth, people. You have to take responsibility for your own well-being. Again, let me know what you're doing on any of the social media pages. Or if you don't want to make it public, just email me. uptalkpodcast@gmail.com. I just want to hear from you. That would be wicked. Okay, people. Won't be long before there's a new episode. I have a bunch of chats lined up in the next couple weeks to record, so shouldn't be long. But until we speak again, please take care of yourself and each other. More love, less judgment.
'Cause we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make the difference and the first on every scene. And it's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this hurting when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone, it keeps going on. When those sirens are gone.